Hello, everyone. Hello, Christina and Dory and Janine and Tamara. Hello, hello, ladies. Hope y'all are having a wonderful night, and I hope you're excited. I am super excited about our guest tonight. I can't wait to delve in, ask questions. Please don't be shy. We'll answer questions as we go along, so put them in there. Let's see. So, how excited is everybody? So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Andrea's bio. Andrea is the author of House of Darkness, House of Light, a supernatural trilogy. She also co authored a historical based mystery thriller in a flicker with George R. Lopez. Graduating in 1980 with degrees in philosophy and English, Andrea spent her life engaged in a variety of endeavors. Georgia didn't suit her. After 7 years, Andrea went home to Rhode Island. Though she has always been a writer, she has likewise explored her own creative abilities. As a professional singer, songwriter, musician, and actor, her life has been full of adventures and interesting characters. For more than 20 years, she was a cast member with the Theater Company of Rhode Island, performing on stage of the Assembly Theater, the historical centerpiece of Harrisville. For the final 10 years, Andrea was employed as a youth counselor and lived in a village of harmony in a quaint cottage on Waterman Lake. In 2007, Andrea began writing the manuscript, which later evolved into the trilogy House of Darkness, House of Light. And she relocated to Georgia to be with her family while embarking upon such major project involving all of them as well. This task has proved to be quite an excursion in its own right, spanning several nightmares, while they exhumed their memories of the dead. Often painful, it has also been a healing process as each of them revisited a past impacting their present, clearly mapping the future of a family. There was no escaping unscathed, though they thought they had successfully done so at the time. In this memoir, whose time has come, many have spoken and written about fragments of their story. Now is the time to tell the whole truth about what happened in the farmhouse, alive with death. They spent an illuminating decade among the spirits. It is a tale worth telling because it is true. They are prepared to disclose their secrets. The world is finally ready to receive the message contained in their experience. It is nothing less than a revelation. Currently, Andrea is writing the screenplay of her haunting family saga, collaborating within the film industry to bring their true story to light on the silver screen. And if she isn't busy enough, she has her own podcast on YouTube called A World Awakening on Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. So, I would like to introduce everybody to Andrea.
Hi. Hi,
Hello.
Kimberly. How are you, dear?
Busy. I'm now calm and relaxed.
Good. Good. I
I
want you to be.
I have been so excited, and my whole goal of doing this channel was to eventually have you on
Oh,
because your you and your family story was so intriguing to me, and I just couldn't get enough. Could not get enough.
well, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate it. What's been important to me all along has been to make sure that the truth got told. And unfortunately, The Conjuring left some very truthful impressions with people. But it also finagled with the truth so much and the characterizations of my family so much that it was unrecognizable to my story, to the books.
Yes.
It was really more just using our names and likenesses and making up their own third story, which they did they admittedly did, um, cherry picking Mrs. Warren's case files
Mm,
and reading my books. And when James Wan read my books, he said, "Oh hell no, we can't do this. We can this would run people out of the theater. What's the point of making a horror movie nobody stays to watch
right.
at the end?" So think of my story that way. I don't think of my story as our story as particularly horrific
Mm-mm.
as it is informative, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. On a
Mm-hmm.
on a spiritual level, on a metaphysical level, in a transcendental way, their existence is proof of an afterlife in some way, shape, or form. What it leaves me with is the knowledge that there is something beyond our mortal existence. We don't
Mm-hmm.
just die and disappear into eternity and infinity as stardust again. We are, in some way, we go on. Whether it just be pure consciousness and, the manifestations are
Mm-hmm.
some kind of a hybrid captured energy. I mean, none of us know. And none of us know what the truth is about this,
The
what
one
this
thing
is,
I
but it is.
the one thing that I had to do first and foremost, as I'm trying to pull them all over here, is before I wanted to interview you, I got all three books,
I
and
see that.
I am going to tell you, everybody in the chat, this is a must read. Um, for me, I find it a very easy read. Because as I read, I can actually visualize being right there, present, as each member of your family is telling their story at each moment as we go along.
Yeah.
And I don't look at it as a frightening story whatsoever. There's challenges that are thrown at you. Ooh, but it's a story of a family bonding together and pushing through and loving each other even through the dark, hard times. To me,
And
it go ahead.
that's what I thought that The Conjuring got right. In the grand scheme of things, people
Mm-hmm.
left the film with several impressions, indelible impressions, and one of them is that good does conquer evil
Mm-hmm.
and love conquers fear.
Yes.
And the Perron family endured an extreme haunting that they all survived. And
Right.
those are three primary messages from the film. and there are also three absolutely accurate messages. The what was lost in translation, what was um, recreated in the characterizations of my family, there were, I think, some glaring discrepancies. Like, for instance, my father did not have anything warm and fuzzy going on with the Warrens at all. Not
Oh
even
yeah.
a little bit. Like,
Oh.
barely cordial, as if it was painful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he did not want them there, did not trust them, did not think they were going to do anything to help, and would only exploit our family. That was his attitude. It was his demeanor toward them. And so the film made it look like, he and Ed are out working on an old car in the back of the house. No, that
Nuh-uh.
did not happen. No.
Mm-mm.
Um, there was, so many things that were disparate to the story. And as you read it, as you go on along, you'll realize that they bear no resemblance at all.
No, definitely not in the book. I mean, you could pick that up immediately, how your father felt about the whole thing. It's a that one was very interesting to me. That what your dad had to say. Um, the one thing I do want to bring up, because this is so important, is Bathsheba.
Yeah,
She got a raw deal out of this,
yeah.
um, which is such a shame.
Mrs. Warren came to the house with her husband on October 30th, 1973. And they, my mother had no idea who they were at all. She just saw that it was after 7. It was pitch black. She figured this nice couple got lost in the woods. Um, lost their way and just stopped at a house that looked like it had lights on. She had no idea it was Ed and Lorraine Warren. And when they identified themselves, Mrs. Warren walked over to our black stove in the kitchen and put her hand on the corner and covered her eyes and said, "I sense a malignant presence in this house. Her name is Bathsheba." And I nobody can take that away from her. I mean, if she picked up on that name, which is such an unusual name,
Hmm. Yeah.
then uh, that's great. But the problem was it got taken a step further, and without looking further, without delving more deeply, um, decided to just blame everything on Bathsheba. So apparently, that was what was in her case files, and all of the films in the Conjuring series are based on her case files. Um, and things did not go as they were represented in the
Yeah.
film. It wasn't just things ended badly with them.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
seance went so terribly wrong that it almost cost my mother her life.
Hmm.
It was a really big deal, and they didn't mean to make matters worse, but in some ways they did.
Yeah.
It was that was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life. I can't think of anything being worse than thinking that you just watched your mother die. You
Right.
know, I mean,
I mean,
that's childhood trauma. That
yes.
is trauma.
I mean that reading that part in your book just gave me goosebumps. Um, there's just so many aspects of it that was truly frightening. Um, I felt maybe they came in and they things were way over their head and they weren't expecting what
Yeah.
happened to happen, and the fact that you girls were there to witness it as well.
Yeah, that shouldn't have
Um,
happened.
no, I mean that was I guess another very shocking thing to me is why did you let the children? I know in the book you said I think it was April wasn't there.
No, Nancy.
Oh,
Nancy was
okay.
the one. She had gone over to Katie's house, I think, and we tried to get Christine. Mom tried to get Christine to be able to go to stay with her friend Michelle, but Michelle's family was gone for the evening. So Christine stayed home. Um, I was there with Cindy, and April was upstairs, and Nancy was the only one that was at one of her friends' house.
That's crazy. Um, what I like to do is, as people are coming on, I like to acknowledge them because they're such an important role. So I want to
Yes.
say hello to Selena and Amy with Full Dark Paranormal. Um, Selena, bless her heart, commented, Miss Andrea, I freaking love you. She has been absolutely so excited um, to have you on. And she also said, Andrea, I consider your family story an amazing learning experience.
Well, thank you, Selena. That's really what um, it's what it was really all about. Oh, and Dory said she was just there. It is a beautiful home. It really
Mm-hmm.
is an extraordinary place. It truly is. It looked very different when we lived there. We
Oh,
had
yes.
furniture, like really modern furniture of the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, so retro now. But uh, it was an extraordinary experience. It taught it taught all of us a lot. Um, for me, as I said, just the knowledge that there's something else, there's some other energy, there's some other dimensions. It really expanded my framework in terms of the way that I didn't just look at the world, but that I looked at the universe. Uh, I consider it the 10 best, weirdest years of my life. I do, but I'm not.
Yeah.
My mother does not feel that way. My sister Cindy does not feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy probably, yeah, Nancy would probably be in my camp on that. My father always regretted selling the farm. My mother couldn't get away from it fast enough. It
Mm-hmm.
really fractured our family. Um, ugh, I got bitten. I got bitten on the back of the neck by a
Oh,
mosquito when I walked my dog, and I slapped it and it was full of blood. And now it's all itchy and it's driving me
uh,
nuts. So I apologize if I'm
that's okay.
talking.
Um, I want to say hello to Sabra. And Dory, her question is, why were you even in the house for the seance?
We shouldn't have been. Well, I don't think it should have even happened.
Mm-hmm.
My father certainly didn't want it to happen. He considered it nothing but, hocus pocus.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want them futzing around with anything like that in that house, and he thought it was dangerous. And the priest and when the Warrens came, they had a priest with them and a medium. And she's the one that conducted the seance. And the priest is the one that worked to convince my father that this was necessary, along with Ed Warren. And
Mm-hmm.
that took a lot longer than the actual seance took. That lasted less than, I would say, less than 5 minutes, certainly.
Oh,
Less
so
than
it just,
5 minutes.
I mean, it,
All hell broke loose almost
yeah,
instantly. Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
It was terrible. Uh,
Um, Dory says she felt as if there were elementals there in the back.
I've taken photographs of the back of that property where I clearly see faces, very large faces in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's, there's a word for that where you see things that they're not, and I can't, it's escaping me right now, but it's not doppelganger. That's the only word I have in my head. Um, but anyway,
Mm.
pareidolia,
Yeah.
where you see something that's not there.
Yeah.
Um, but I've seen photographs of the back of the property of that house where I am swearing to you, faces as big as trees, like huge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a couple of those photographs. I have some photographs that are so bizarre. I've never put them out. I've never put them out
Wow.
publicly.
Wow.
I just
Um,
haven't.
just to let you know, Sabra says, Miss Andrea, some sanitizers will take out the itch of your mosquito bite.
Oh, hand sanitizer. Oh, wow, that's right. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. There's some in every room.
Right. I have a 13-year-old son,
Oh,
so I have MS and fibro, so I've always taught my kid when you come home from school, take your clothes off, and then let's wash our hands. I
yeah.
don't need any of the
Hose
kid
off.
sickness.
Yeah, hose
Mm-hmm.
off. Well, they're all walking typhoid Mark and Mary anyway. All kids are.
Right. Oh yes,
I
they're
mean,
germ
I think
bags. That's what I call
well,
them,
yeah,
dirt bags.
America, needs to like smarten up because last winter when it was in some parts of the country at its worst, and everybody was wearing a mask or seemingly so. We hardly even had a flu season last year.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just Mother Nature saying, oh, you guys have been hit hard enough. I think I'll hold back on the flu this year. It's because everybody was wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And if we would do that in the winter months when we're out in public around other people, probably we'd virtually nip the flu in the bud at the same time that we were kicking COVID's ass.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's just my opinion about that. Okay, I know I got off topic.
That's
Um,
okay.
uh, the farmhouse was a revelation. It wasn't always a revelation when it was happening. I want to be very clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
There were things that happened there that were so extreme and bizarre that I've often said, had I not lived it, I can't tell you I would believe it. The story has some extreme events in it.
Yeah, I think the one really bizarre story that has stuck out to me was your mother being attacked by a coat hanger.
Yeah,
That y'all couldn't see anything, but you saw the coat hanger literally just
beating the hell out of
hit.
her.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that. I mean, to be that age, to be so young, and to witness that. That again is another traumatic thing. And I think a neighbor was over to visit at the time.
Yeah, yeah, she was. She
And
never came back in the house again.
I mean, it's stories like that that are bizarre, but then there's stories of you know of you y'all as siblings coming together at night. Your sisters crawling in bed with you for safety, and it's just to read it. Like I said, I never read it as this horrible, absolute 24-hour, 7-day a week haunting,
Because it
but it
wasn't.
was right, and but it was it. I, it's y'all's family dynamic, which is so miraculous. I mean, because I know your parents were. That's I know your mother's big issue was your father never said just a few words, I believe you. Simple
Mm-hmm.
words, because I can relate with her.
Mm-hmm.
When I met my husband, I said, "Hey, I'm just going to tell you right now, I have these abilities." My husband never believed in anything. He didn't believe in a heaven and hell, spirits, paranormal, what? And I came into his house and he was like, "What did you bring in here?" He has said many times, "I had a very quiet house until she moved in." And so I can understand, if he had ever told me, "I don't believe you," you know, or never acknowledged what I was telling him, that's
Mm-hmm.
hurtful. It's a hard thing. So, you still, it's just the dynamic of the story. It's just so amazing. I love it. Um, I'm not even through because doing this and preparing takes so much of my time. So I haven't been able to read as much as I want to. But I am more than 2/3 of the way through the first book, and I just the way you wrote it is also so interesting. Having everybody tell their story of that event and how everything is perceived so differently, because I know you never really had per se anything bad happen, but your sister did.
Yeah. Several of my
And
sisters did,
yeah.
and that was very difficult for me because I felt and still do feel very protective toward my family, all my family members, everybody in my family. So it's my natural way of being. And when I saw things happening at the farmhouse that were dangerous, where the outcome could have been different, could have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's when I started to really understand that these were cosmic forces,
Mm-hmm.
that there was something going on that was evil and strong, really
Mm-hmm.
powerful, uh, but that there was also kindness and benevolence and
Mm-hmm.
an energy that was just light. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it was everything. I mean, it's how the books got their names: House of Darkness, House of Light. It is
Which your
both.
mother, your mother came up with the name of the book, didn't she?
She did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and thank God she did too, because that had been rattling around in my head, and I didn't know, what to do with it because it was just such a big story. It covered so much time and the depth and breadth of the love of family and the altercations and the psychological drama and the spiritual enlightenment and everything else, everything in
Right.
between was everything rolled up in one thing, which is really the nature of life and existence and
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. So, yeah, she walked over to me one day and I was well in. I was many hundreds of pages in to the
Mm-hmm.
first draft when she said to me, "What are you going to call it? What are you going to give it as a title?" And I said, Mom, I don't know. I don't know. I have a few ideas, but I don't know. And she just crossed her arms and she said, "House of Darkness, House of Light." It was both. And then she walked away in her inimitable Virgo way, just floated away from me. And I thought, oh, you know what? That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yay. Went into the file and actually gave it a title, and it stuck. And it drives people crazy because I don't put a comma between House of Darkness, House of Light, because they're one and the same thing.
Yep.
And the comma is a delineation point as well as a punctuation point that is not appropriate to what the story is really about. And that is
Right.
that one cannot exist without the other, that they are intertwined. Darkness and light, and good and evil, and an eternal conflict that exists here in our three-dimensional world. And that's the truth of it. You know, we are what we are, and there is always some kind of evil exists in the world. I think that it's safe for everybody to admit.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a tangible thing. You can't take a cup of evil to your neighbor, but you can certainly rain evil down on your neighbor should you choose in a variety of ways, just because it is not a tangible object doesn't mean that it's not real. Air is real and it's invisible.
Dory says the outside was way creepier than the inside for her.
Oh, that's interesting.
Selena says, I love your connection with the house, Miss Andrea.
Me
Um,
too.
yes. And I want to say hello to Frank. Bless his heart, he's working, so he popped in real quick. Selena says, everything you just said is why I love and believe that your family is so amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's just, I could put it a little differently every time I say it, but it's always the same thing. It's, I believe that my family was supposed to live in that house for a decade. That 30 years after we left, I was supposed to begin to tell the story. That my mom said it's not the kind of story that one should rightfully take to the grave.
Right.
If we were brave enough to live through it, then we should tell people that it happened and what happened and how it happened. And in a way, I try to approach the books almost with a little bit of a journalistic flair, as a roving reporter through the netherworld, trying to get to the who, what, when, where, why, and how of each story, each episode, incident that transpired over the course of all those years. And there were many. I mean, there were times, I would write about something as though it happened once. But then at the end of the story, you'll read, I know you know this already, Kim, you're deep enough into know this. Then you'll get at the end of the story and it'll say, yeah, and Cindy said this happened thousands of times.
Yep.
And that's the punctuation point on that story. Now stop, pause, reflect. Imagine that. Imagine a child growing up in a house where this was just an incessant, overt, obvious occurrence in the house. And sometimes it was a very minor little thing where you just kind of know, okay, they're there. Somebody's here. Something just happened. Something just moved. Lights just came on by themselves. That door just opened by itself. Minor little things. Those were minor little things that in most other people's houses would completely freak them out. But
Yes.
it happened with such rapidity, such redundancy, such repetition of the same event over and over and over again, that it can't be anything other than deliberate. It just can't. It's conscious contact with
Mm-hmm.
spirit. It happens in that house.
Yep.
It happened
And
with every member of my family.
the thing for me is how I can relate to it, because I can remember seeing my first full body apparition at 3 years old, and it was in the house that my father grew up. And my father, we didn't find out until we were adults that we saw the same thing. My father at 16 saw a Native American in his bedroom. Um, Here I am, 3-ish, and my screams woke my parents up. But I can remember I wasn't screaming out of fear, but it was, there's somebody strange in my room that shouldn't be here. And the minute my parents came in, my dad immediately remembered and was like, we got to get her out of the room now. And after that, I never had a problem. But it was, as I'm getting older, I can remember being in my bedroom, being terrified because I could hear people talking, moving around, but I couldn't explain it to my parents. And of
Yeah.
course, this is the 70s, so what did my parents do? They were tired of me sneaking in, so they locked the bedroom door. So I can remember dragging my pillow and blanket and laying up against the door. And finally, my mom got this idea, well, let's put a radio in her room and see if that'll keep her in there, which helped a little bit. But, hearing what all of y'all went through, I was like, okay, I can relate to an extent. I didn't have that kind of issue, but I couldn't imagine. I mean, even with me and hearing everything and seeing things, it just blew my mind reading it. You know,
Yeah.
this because even as a child, it's hard to wrap your head around it.
Yes, it is.
To
It absolutely is
mhm.
difficult. Uh,
um,
you question everything. You literally
mhm,
question
mhm,
everything. Everything
mhm,
that you've known of life to that point comes into
mhm,
doubt.
mhm.
It does. Is this Sabra? Is that how you pronounce her name?
Sabra, and
Sabra.
yeah, she was the house and property handed down through the generations.
Yes, it was. We were the first outside family. It was built by the Richardsons. The land was deeded in 1680. The house, as it stands now, was completed in 1736. And it, through marriage, became the Arnold estate. But the Richardson family are the actual homesteaders. And it originally had at least, I think, 2 or 3 thousand acres with it. It was a huge parcel of land. When we bought it, it was down to 200 acres. Um, so it's um, it's a really magical, mystical, wonderful place, and it
Mhm,
has, I swear, in some strange way, a consciousness of its own.
mhm,
That's it's it has residual energy. It has
mhm,
kinetic energy.
mhm,
It has a multi-dimensional aspect and a timelessness to it
mhm,
that I've never experienced any other place. There's no place like it on earth. Absolutely no place else like it
mhm.
on earth. And I
It,
love it and I miss it. And now they're selling it. And I don't know if when I go up for, I'm going up. Oh, in case any of your viewers are interested, we're doing a
mhm,
3-day live stream at the farmhouse. Three of us, 3 members of my family, my father, my sister Nancy, myself, will be there on the premises. My mother, sister Christine, and sister Cindy will be coming in remotely
mhm,
from Georgia.
mhm.
So, because I guess they think 1,200 miles is a safe distance from the farmhouse. but that's not necessarily so.
But your mother is originally from here, Georgia.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she is. Yep,
That
she
that
comes from
was
Telfair County, Georgia, South Georgia.
that
Her
was
family were tenant
very
farmers.
yeah. It to me that was such an interesting story to read because I was like, oh wow, because I don't know what it is. And it broke my heart to see the house going up for sale again because I was like, oh, I get a chance. I have such a pull to that house. I don't know why, but there's this draw. And if I'm every time I'm asked, where, if you could have any location, where would Conjuring House? That is where I want to go.
Yeah,
I have such a pull to it. It's unbelievable. And I mean, we can only fingers crossed and hope that it goes to the right person who takes care of it like Corey and Jen have taken care of it.
yeah. I know. I'm very concerned about that. I will be there, Selena. I will be there. It's a thing. It's a live stream being produced by the Dark Zone, and you can find. I keep putting up the link for it on my page, but it's a 3 day event. It's $20 for the whole 3 days, which I don't know. Considering movie tickets for a 2 hour flick are $10, I'd say 20 dollars for
Is a good
three
deal.
full days and nights is a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to make the most of it, and I'm just going to treat this like, wow, this really might be the end.
Now,
We'll be there
how long
28th,
has
the
it?
29th, and the 30th. No, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st is the 3 day event,
Yeah,
live stream event.
Halloween weekend.
Yep.
Um, so when was the last time you were at the Conjuring House?
On March 11th, 2020 was the day that the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. We finished shooting a documentary there that has still yet to air because the pandemic just shut down the
Mm-hmm.
whole, you know,
Yep.
the editing phase of everything that they had to do. And so I don't know when it will air, which is a shame because it was a lot of work done and it was really good. Um, but I, we were supposed to leave the next morning, and I had checked in for the flight the night before, and it said with crew and passengers 183 people. And when we got on the plane the next morning, uh, TF Green Airport in Providence was a ghost town, and there were only 24 people on our flight. And it was
Wow.
shocking, absolutely surreal. The flight attendants had sit wherever you want, folks. Nobody else will be on the plane today. We're taking off with 24.
Wow.
Yeah. And we don't know what the future holds, but, we all saw what the future held.
Mm-hmm.
This was, and we're not done with this. We're not done with this.
No.
No.
I want to say hello to Misty. Hello, welcome. Um, and Sabra says I would love to go to the house. Sadly, I can't go because the guy that she's with is a wuss. um, so, did your family experience anything on the first day of moving and actually living in the house?
Yes. Yes. The first day that we moved in, I saw a full body apparition in the dining room. Uh, he looked like flesh and blood to me. I said, "Good morning, sir," as I walked past him. And then Christine saw him. And then Cindy saw him. And then Nancy said to Cindy, "Did you see that man with Mr. Kenyon?" "I did, but he just disappeared." And that was it. That was the statement. That was the very first acknowledgement that we were living in a place that was different, that was different than anything we had experienced before.
Wow. I want to say hello to Casey. Hello. Um, Trying to make sure I'm getting everybody's questions in. Um, didn't your sister Cindy experience something at night in her bedroom shortly after moving in?
Yes, she was hearing voices in her room, and they got louder and louder, and they were all speaking together, all saying the same thing at the same time. And what they were saying was, "There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall." And they were all around her bed, and she came busting into my room and hopped into bed with me. I pulled her up under the quilt, and she told me that that's what they were saying, and she heard them for the entire time that she lived there. And we didn't know what I mean, what wall? What wall? What are you talking about? But and it didn't even occur to us that maybe they were referring to one of the stone walls. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. But I want to thank you from beyond, uh, from before, when everybody was sending me uh, birthday wishes. I appreciate it very much. That's very kind. Yeah, I'm getting old. Oh my God, I'm starting to really feel it now. I am. I was at an event with John Tenney, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. He walks up to me and he's like, "You exhausted?" I'm like, "Yes, exhausted. We're getting too old for this." Like, just, buddy, I got more than a decade on you. I don't want to hear it. Oh
Right.
God. Yeah. Oh my God. So yeah, I got off track. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
so
okay. That's
tired.
okay.
It's been such an incredibly long day. Oh
Um,
God.
Now I know Corey. What was interesting is he had a university come out and do ground penetration,
Oh
and
yeah, that's right. The
yeah.
7 dead soldiers. That's it.
I thought that I was like, oh wow, because I had already read that part in the book, and then, you know, you hear Corey tell that story, and I was like, oh, okay, they must have been telling her something from then, and I mean, of course, you wouldn't think you would think the wall of the house, somebody's buried, which is impossible.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's the stone wall, and that's one thing I always tell people. The history of this house is so um, rich in the history, and I always say history and paranormal go hand in hand. And to me, I mean, you're talking about King Louis and the Indian War, and you're talking about the Revolutionary War. We had the Civil War. I mean, this property saw so much that,
Yeah.
you know,
Conflict,
yeah.
darkness, and light.
Hmm.
Yes, it did.
And it was a rough time back then too.
Yeah,
So,
I
and,
can't
and I
even
mean,
imagine trying to live back then. I'm so spoiled now. My God, we lost our electricity for 2 hours yesterday morning. You would have thought it was the end of the freaking world. Like, oh my God, how long is this going to take? I have no internet. It's not
we
pretty
we
when I whine.
No,
It's not.
we lost our power right before the summer, so it was still warm down here, and I was like, okay, we have no AC. My
Right.
MS does not do heat whatsoever. Dinner time's coming. We have no power. We have gas, but no light. So I was like, we're going to get dinner and we're going to sit in the car with the AC.
Yeah.
I was like, and then we came home and we lit everything up, and the kid was just having a blast with it. He's like, can we do this again? No.
No, we would prefer not to.
Right.
We had a transformer. It sounded, at least that's what my father said. He was outside watering the plants. It was like 7:30 in the morning, and I slept right through it, so I must have been dead to the world. But he said it sounded like a cannon going off just down the road, and it was a transformer had blown. And I mean, when those things go off, honest to God, it sounds like there's a rocket launch. They're really a massive conduit for all that flowing of electricity through it,
Mm-hmm.
all being processed through this one thing. And yeah, when they blow, they can
They
do
blow.
damage. They can start fires. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, so your family became very close with Mr. Kenyon.
Yes, we
Um,
did.
when he passed away, did he ever appear at the farmhouse? Because I know he lived in the house for a very long time.
Cindy said that she thought he was the one that helped her get the horses in during the nor'easter,
Mm-hmm.
during the storm. She
Mm-hmm.
felt his presence.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
that it was him, that he came to help her. I felt his presence at the farm more than once.
Mm-hmm. Because he was
Yeah.
such a, from
A
reading,
wonderful man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, your mother adored him, and you know,
We all did.
yeah.
We all did. And he loved us. He did.
And I remember you saying um, that when y'all were moving in, he was waiting. He still had the moving truck hadn't shown up for him, and your father asked him, "You can stay here with us. You don't have to leave," which I thought was so remarkable. To say, "Hey, you don't have to leave. You can keep living here. We can
We'll live
arrange this."
around you. Yeah.
Right.
We'll just circulate around you. It'll be fine.
The interesting thing was when I read, and I thought the same way your father thought when I first read it, is when he said, "Keep all the lights on at night."
Yeah.
Because when I see the stairs in that farmhouse, it reminds me of my husband's home that was built. Um, mm, it was built before the war because his city was bombed 3 times.
Mm.
But the stairs in Holland are, they're so steep. I've never seen stairs so steep. And then I saw inside the house, the farmhouse, and I was like, oh my God, it took me back to Holland because I was like, those stairs are so steep. So when I read that story, I thought, oh, well, I can understand your father going, oh, okay, that makes sense. I mean, they're in a new home. The stairs are steep. If the girls needed to get up in the middle of the night, you don't want them falling down it. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was like, okay, I forget what we've, because that's how entrenched I get into your reading. I'm like, that makes sense. Oh, wait, yeah, we're talking about the farmhouse. So I found that very interesting that he kept all the lights on at night.
Yeah. Everybody that lived in that area eventually told us that There was never a time, no matter what time of night or early morning, in the middle, of pitch blackness, that house didn't light up the landscape.
And Saber says there's no running on those stairs. No.
No,
Um,
although we did. Oh yeah, we'd run up and down those. It was easier. Let me put it to you this way: it was much easier to run up the stairs than run down the stairs.
I have fallen down our stairs twice in Holland. Fallen down them because coming down. It is a nightmare. And in Holland, the oh, there's Princess Buttercup.
It's the peanut.
She's so sweet, little love bug.
It's my little peanut.
The one thing with stairs in Holland is they curve at the top and they curve at the bottom.
Well, and that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
The stairs that have going up into what was my bedroom are curved at the bottom and curved at the top.
Yep.
Just
It,
it goes like all the way around
yep.
it was a very interesting hallway.
Yes. I mean, I dreaded those stairs. When I was pregnant, I was like, I'm not sleeping upstairs at night. I said because I'm not coming down those stairs in the middle of the night, pregnant. I needed to go to the bathroom as quickly as possible. I was like, so we had a bedroom downstairs, and we stayed down there for the
Mm-hmm.
first year
Yeah.
because I was like, I'm not carrying my child, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna
Yep.
do it when I'm pregnant. So
Yep.
those, yeah. Mm. Um, is it true that the only connection Bathsheba has to the farmhouse is her husband?
Well, I can't say that that's true. Um, I can't say that that's true. Bathsheba could have had other connections to the farmhouse, but they weren't familial
Right.
connections. They weren't. She was not part of the Arnold clan. She was not part of the Richardsons. She was born of the a union between the Fair and the Taft families, both of whom were very wealthy, very well established, and had a great deal to do with Brown University. She came from means,
Yeah.
and I don't know how she ended up being married to Judson Sherman and living on the Sherman farm, but that's where she came from. And as far as we know, that's where she had all four of her children, three of whom did not survive
Mm-hmm.
beyond the age of 4.
Mm.
Herbert was her only child that survived her.
Wow.
And we don't know all the intricacies of it. We don't know. I was thinking today, I'm going to get off on a tangent for just a moment here.
Okay.
Please pardon me, I do that with some frequency.
That's okay.
Um, I was thinking today about the power of the word rumor.
Mm-hmm.
What we consider just to be common gossip, rumor, and innuendo back in her age could have gotten you killed. Back 100 years
Mm-hmm.
earlier in Salem would have gotten you killed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think it's worthy of exploration to visit the notion of how she was not only condemned in life but in afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
That um, rumor, innuendo, speculation, accusation, faulty, unfounded, or not, hung over her head like the sword of Damocles
Yes.
from when she was a young woman. We don't know when that incident supposedly happened at the farmhouse. We don't know. What we do know is that's what Mr. McEachern told my mother of her life story,
Mm-hmm.
and that a baby died in her care at the Arnold house when she was a young woman. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it was her baby. We don't know why she would have been there.
Right.
But then again, there were only a few homesteads in the area. No, just a few places that had big, large, well established families.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, they would have known each other. And the Sherman farm and the Arnold farm were about a mile and a half apart.
Mm-hmm.
So, that no big deal. Like, that's your nearest neighbor. So
Right.
it would stand to reason that she would know everybody at the house and um, you know, could conceivably have been there. We don't know. We're never going to know all the
Mm-mm.
details of Bathsheba Sherman. But I am her great defender because I just don't believe that anybody should be accused of murder unless
Mm-hmm.
there's some proof that they did it, unless there's some real evidence
Mm-hmm.
that they did. Um, and there was an inquest that she was involved in regarding the death of the child. My mother did read a very
Mm-hmm.
in-depth article about that from the archives up at Clark University in
Mm-hmm.
Worcester, Mass. Why Rhode Island's records are stored up there, I have no idea. I still can't answer that. But she was, for all intents and purposes, absolved of any wrongdoing. But in the court of public opinion, she was tried and convicted. And that hung over her
Mm-hmm.
lifelong. But she was buried in hallowed ground next to her husband. Her son
Yeah,
was
she was.
directly across the way, and all of her other children were buried beside her in little tiny
Mm-hmm.
headstones. It was, oh God,
Mm.
what a hard life. I
Yeah.
just, I think she should be given the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this
Yeah.
curse of Bathsheba ends with me telling her story,
Yes.
ends with me clarifying what I know of her.
Well, what disturbs me when she was accused of also witchcraft,
Yeah,
but she is buried in a
yeah,
cemetery with her family, which infuriates me that people will go there. I know her tombstone's not there anymore, but to chip away at her tombstone to take something home makes me so angry.
yeah, me
How
too.
how what is wrong with these? When I saw and they were like, we're not going to put it back out because it's going to keep getting destroyed. I was like, that is so shameful because this woman, we don't know the whole story, and you want a little piece, and she's laying there with her husband, her one surviving son, and three babies.
It's
It just,
desecration.
yeah.
It's the desecration of a gravesite, of a family gravesite.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst of humanity bubbling to the surface of the
Mm-hmm.
cauldron. Her, they can't protect her gravesite.
Right.
They can't. I mean, they can't put a sentry there and guard it 24/7.
Right.
It's
And I think that it's so shameful. It's so sad, and the people that have done that to her grave, you know, I believe in karma, and
yeah, and I believe woe be unto them because I don't
mm-hmm.
know who they are, but she does.
It's I don't know. I never got the vibe off of her that she was, you know, we all heard the stories, like you say, rumors, and we all heard the stories, and then here comes the Conjuring movies that still paint her in this light, and I never got that kind of feeling off of her, and I just felt so bad.
Yeah, she got vilified because she got tagged as the villain. Um, and
She
the
aged quite
spirit that
quickly
was,
after that.
pardon me?
She aged quite quickly after uh, the inquest.
Yeah, according to Mr. McEachin, uh, she uh, she lived a long, angry, bitter life, and that nothing was ever the same. He said that she died when he was 10 years old, so he was very, very elderly man when we met him.
Mm-hmm.
He was a lovely man, a very nice man. I think he was about 20 years older, maybe not that much, but probably about 20 years older than Mr. Kenyon.
Wow.
So, yeah, um, I I think about Mr. Kenyon so much, Kim. Um, he was there was something almost saintly about him, something so wise and soft spoken and calm, and he just so full of love. He
Mm-hmm.
really was such a kind man. When he knew that we were coming up to the farm before my parents had even bought it, we probably made 5 or 6 trips up as a family
Mm-hmm.
in the time between when my mother found it and then when they closed on the deal, which
Mm-hmm.
was the beginning of December of 1970. Um, and he'd always have he wore kind of baggy pants with big pockets, side slit pockets, and they were deep, and he would fill them with candy. And when we all got there, he would just reach down deep into his pockets in his baggy pants that were actually very nice. That was just like a certain cut, almost like a
Yeah.
farmer's cut, like lots of room.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd reach down into his pocket and come up with a handful of candy, to present to us, and we would each pick a piece or two, and then later he'd walk up to us again, and he'd reach into the other pocket, and there was a bag. He was just so sweet, and he was so sad because of his wife's death. He was so sad. It was
Uh,
just heartbreaking
I
to
know in your book, your mother tried to tactfully
yeah,
ask him, "I'm hearing things in the house," or you know, but he never divulged exactly what or anything.
yeah, or anything. He just kind of looked at her with a little bit of a glint in his eye, and he said, "Swallows in the chimney, my dear. Swallows in the chimney." Like, bullshit. There's something going on
Right.
in that parlor, man. Uh,
I read that and I just chuckled at it because I was like, how that's such a cheeky thing to say. There's swallows in the chimney. I just I was like,
maybe that's how he convinced himself of the noises that he heard in the parlor, but no, no, that wasn't that. He,
that
but the thing that was interesting is that he would come and he would ask, uh, kind of cryptically, "Is everything all right? Everything's okay here? Is there any problems? Anything
interesting.
everything's okay?" Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Almost like he wanted to know, "Do you see what I see?" You know?
that's interesting
Um,
because I do understand. you're talking about late 60s and 70s where, you know, it's okay to talk about. The one thing I tell people is in the South, it's okay to talk about ghost stories. But when you start talking about you experiencing something, no, 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 you don't go there. I mean, um, I take after my father. My father loves, I mean, he loved Amityville. I mean, I was too young to be watching The Exorcist and Amityville, and my dad loved it. And my son is now taking after me. He's 13 now, so we've let him watch horror movies. And I've had to be very protective over him because I was never sure if he was going to have my abilities. My mom had him, my father had him on separate occasions. So I, when we moved here, you know, it didn't dawn on me how close I was to Kennesaw God, Kennesaw Mountain. And
Oh
I
yeah.
looked at it.
Oh yeah. Very. I can't be anywhere near that place. Oh my God, Kim. I mean, that's as bad as being in Gettysburg or Antietam.
Hmm.
I mean, it
I tell
really
people,
is.
people are shocked because they don't know. And I'm like, it is in the top 10 bloodiest battles of the Civil War. And they're
Yeah,
like, really? We never heard of it. Well, now you have.
and now
And
you
our property sits, because we saw a history, one of those historical markers. There was a skirmish that took place here. And I can remember my husband was working night shifts and he was able to work from home. And we had the windows open, and the dog, both our dogs were barking out the window. And we're looking, and he's like, oh, it's probably rabbits. I was like, no, it's not rabbits, honey. He goes, what? It's not rabbits. What are they barking at? I like to I like to call spirits visitors. So I said, we have visitors. He goes, why are they out there? Because they can't come in. I said, I've had to protect this house to make sure because my son would wake up screaming, and I'd come running and there's a witch, Mama, there's a witch. Baby, that's not a witch. Mama, it's a witch. Baby, it's not a witch. That is Mama's great aunt. That is your great great aunt, and she is here watching over you. And I, living here, I've only had one bad thing happen, and it frightened me. It woke me up, and I said, "There's something in our kids' room." I woke my husband, and I said, "Come with me now." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, you cannot come into this bedroom. I want you to stand at the door. And I said, when I tell you, his mom had passed away. I said, when I tell you, you reach out to her. I said, because I'm going to need her help. My guides were my grandfather, my grandmother, and my great aunt. We couldn't move what was in that room. And it was scaring me that I couldn't move it. And I said, Ed, call your mom now. And with such presence, boom, she was there. And whatever was there was gone. And it's funny because our two dogs have since passed and we rescued another dog. Anytime we leave, she goes and stays in our son's room. And my son goes, why? I said, because your room's protected, son.
Mm-hmm.
That's a safe place for her to go.
Yeah.
And that's where she goes whenever something happens and I'm not here to immediately acknowledge, because I have set down a rule. If you're going to be in this house, you respect me, you don't mess with my family, and you don't mess with my dog. And
Yeah.
twice it messed with my dog. And I said, I told you, you won't like what's going to happen. And it calms down, and then it'll tug my hair. I think it's a child. So I'm kind of a little patient with it. So it's, yeah, it's interesting living here. And it's, I guess, the South's little secret, the mountain.
Well, it sure shouldn't be,
No.
because it was a horrific, bloody battle. And, uh, I don't understand. I don't understand what's wrong with humanity. I really don't. I really don't. Oh my God. All we want to do is just make war and kill each other. I don't understand. I never, ever will. Hold on, I'm going to put my dog down on her princess palette. What? He's my baby.
It's funny because usually my dog is down here with me and she is upstairs either with my husband or she's in my son's room,
Hmm.
which told me something.
Yeah.
Um, so can you tell me about what happened with your sister April um, and what she saw in the pine grove?
Yeah. I think April was the first one who saw children on the property. And way back across the creek into the woods, if you walked about maybe a quarter of a mile in to the right, there was this pristine, absolutely beautiful, beautiful pine grove. Um, and April, I guess when she was probably around, I think she was around 10, maybe around 10, maybe a little younger, maybe 8. I can't remember. I can't remember. God Almighty. I wish she was still among us so I could pick up on the phone and ask her, rather than go and look it up in the books.
Right.
Because, she told me what age she was, and she passed away in 2017, and
Mm-hmm.
I miss her every day. This is the moment that I'm missing her today, when I wish I could ask her, how old were you when you saw the Indian children?
Mm-hmm.
But she saw a group of kids dressed um, according to what they wore ages, eons ago in their Indian tribe. How they were dressed in skins and they had shoes that rather resembled moccasins, only more sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she saw them playing in the pine grove. But the thing that was so amazing was that when they existed on this planet, that pine grove wasn't there. And so somehow they were coming from their dimension into our dimension, intermingling with our dimension, and were even careful as they were playing and going walking through the soft pine straw around these magnificent pine trees, all lined up in rows, beautiful. But they would step over the fragile orchids, the lady slippers, the mountain laurel that was, the sprigs of the beautiful flowers that were coming up under the pines in pure shade, and the lady slippers everywhere. And she said that was the thing that just kind of blew her mind, was that they were being careful of something that existed then, not back
Mm-hmm.
when they were. It's bizarre.
Wow.
I don't know. It really was like an intermingling of dimensions. It was like a real coming together of our time then and their
Mm-hmm.
time coming together. It was
Wow.
strange. She said there were at least
Um,
like 10 of them, at least 10 of them.
wow. I mean, it's. I guess it's not shocking, and then it I guess would make sense where Jory said she felt there were elementals in the woods. So and elementals and natives kind of, they go hand in hand. So that's interesting. I just wanted to welcome Sheriff Buford, Mary with Lunar Eclipse Paranormal. And Sheriff Buford said, Miss Perrin, I lived in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. We're real close to the battlefields.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Mary says, yeah, they were overwhelming. I've had some friends that have been to them, and one of them had never felt like he did then. Um, Dory says we had Native Americans chanting dialect come through the spirit box back in the pines.
Oh,
So,
really? Yep.
so I mean, it's interesting. Um,
I wouldn't put anything past that place.
no,
I wouldn't.
mm-mm.
Nope. No, not after experiencing what I did for so long. No. I think, just about anything's possible there. Although I will say that for the most part, the manifestations were almost, what's the word? They were almost relegated to certain types of hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could only express this way or they could only express that way. They couldn't, they couldn't do the Beetlejuice routine. This just wasn't in them. It just
No.
wasn't. Uh, and, the sightings were never for long, extended periods of time, other than the one in my mother's room with the torches. What, I've always
Mm-hmm.
referred to as the torches incident.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hold on, I don't know what my dog is. She caught a baby lizard in the house today, and thankfully I caught it from her and got it outside so that it would live. It wasn't a baby, it was kind of a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
not smart enough to stay out of the house. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm just watching her now. They get in. They do. They get in this time of year.
Oh.
So, anyway, I wanted to invite everybody to come to the live stream event over Halloween, and they can find the link to it on my page or at the Dark Zone.
Or
It's
I'll
going to
post
be,
the link as well.
thank you. That is, the one big event. Uh, I am next Sunday. I'm doing an event in Casadega, which is kind of a spiritualist retreat here in
Mm-hmm.
Florida. And they have a beautiful temple, and I'll be lecturing there over this weekend. But my new show, A World Awakening, starts. It's almost a year old, actually,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, it it in its prior incarnation was a Blog Talk Audio
Mm-hmm.
show, and it was I did with my friend and my co-author on in the Flickr, George
Mm-hmm.
Lopez. Um, and we ran for about 2.5 years, and it was really good. And I'm very proud of it. But I'll tell you what, this new one, I started about a year ago with Tony Rathman as my producer. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
It's on StreamYard. I love it. I love doing it. I love working with Tony. I love it. But I will let you know that we're moving to KGRA,
Yep.
which is a big syndicated radio, audio, internet,
Mm-hmm.
huge thing. Network. It's like its own network.
Yep.
Uh, and we move this Friday night uh, to KGRA from the 9 to 11 Eastern spot. And my very first guest is John Tenney. And I'm
Oh.
so thrilled.
Oh.
So thrilled. He
That
is,
is. I was so excited for all of y'all because I follow the paranormal channel with Ken and George, who I absolutely love. The two of them together are hilarious, and
yes.
um, I can see eye to eye with them. So when I heard all that, I was so thrilled for y'all, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Tony, and as I told you, my husband hands down says that is the best interview we had done.
Yeah.
He loved it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I mean, to pick his brain and everything. He is such a what you see is what you get. He is very
Yeah.
honest, and his wife is lovely.
Yeah.
So I was very happy about that. So I am so excited for y'all's big move.
Oh, I'm exhausted.
You
All
have
the
been going
preparation
nonstop.
for it. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
have been going nonstop. And all the preparation that goes into, pulling something like this together. I'm just prayerful. I'm just
Yeah.
prayerful that all goes well. Everyone is thrilled and delighted. That we have a wonderful time, that it's fun, filled with love and light and laughter. Um,
Yeah.
and Tenny he's just an amazing, amazing man. He's got so many gifts and so many talents and
Mm-hmm.
abilities, and just the way he thinks.
Yes.
It's kind of like in a lot of ways we're like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know what he's thinking. He knows what I'm thinking. I can like finish something that he starts and vice versa. Um, he's incredibly patient with me. Incredibly patient with me. I'm so of everything. I'm so grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
He has never, no matter what I screw up, no matter what I do, no matter what it is, he's always, always kind
Yes.
to me. And, you know, I so very much appreciate him. And I'm so thrilled to launch the new show with this, uh, with, this incredible talent. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he's more than that. I struggle for words to describe him because he's brilliant. He's
Mm-hmm.
just brilliant. I think he's a genius. I'm just the way his thought process works,
Mm-hmm.
and to watch it unfold as he speaks. Well, you're just
Yes.
gonna have to tune in and see
Yes.
it. It's going to be
Yes.
phenomenal. Yep.
Um,
So
let's see. Mary says that I think there's another dimension at the farmhouse.
more than one, I would think.
Oh, yes.
I would think certainly. I think it is.
Celine, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that I I think that there are multiple dimensions everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
that in some all at once, that exist all simultaneously. It's my own hypothesis. Um, Multiple dimensions which exist simultaneously. I think that there's something about the farmhouse that opens them where they have the energy or the vibration or something. There's a cosmic
Mm-hmm.
connection that occurs at that farmhouse
Mm-hmm.
between the past, the present, the future,
Mm-hmm.
and in multiple dimensions. And for some reason, most marked between darkness and light and darkness, whether that's dawn or dusk, is when some of the most phenomenal things have appeared in
Mm-hmm.
the house. And that the energy has literally manifested in form.
Mm-hmm. Selena says Tony was a great interview, Kim, but this one's your best one. And as I
Oh, that's
said, I that was my goal, was to work my way up to get you on, because the story is incredible. She also says, I can't believe that I'm watching Miss Andrea right now. She
that's
is your
very
biggest
sweet.
fan, and she said she would love to sit down with a cup of coffee and chat with you.
Oh, a cup of coffee sounds pretty damn good to me right now. I gotta tell you
Right.
what. Oh my God. Like, Dad, Dad. I know he's out there somewhere, probably watching Dancing with the Stars.
Um, I think it has that also. I feel it when I have looked at it in pictures, is what Lunar, who's Mary, has said. Um, I think there's, I think there is residual energy, um, along with just spirit straight up wanting to be heard and seen.
Yes, and acknowledged.
Yes.
Yes, acknowledged. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an important part of it. I think that's why sometimes they behave badly if they're not getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
Just like children, in that, in some respect, there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids there at a certain age that it doesn't matter if it's good attention or negative
Mm-hmm.
attention, as long as it's attention
It's
and they're
attention.
getting it, they'll do whatever they have to get it. And sometimes I could swear that was how the spirits acted, misbehaved.
Mm-hmm. Dory says, I don't think it's a house. I think it's the land.
I think it's both. I do.
I
I
think
think
I
it's
do.
both.
Yeah, I agree too.
I mean, when
I
you
do
think
think.
about it, 8 generations of one extended family lived and died in that house,
Mm-hmm.
and a number of them either never left or they come back with such regularity that they might as well pay the mortgage
Right.
or pick up a
And
broom.
right, because that's, you know, when I saw that, I was like, the house does play a key role, and I do believe the land too. And I think what people misunderstand with some of these spirits is, back then it was a hard life, and the mortality rate for the babies was even harder. But I mean, as cold
Yeah,
as it is up there in the wintertime, surviving, summer times, you know, it makes people hard, and they're much different back then than we are now.
yeah,
I don't
I would
think
think
we,
so.
yeah.
I mean, we don't even realize how good we've got it. We don't. I mean,
Uh,
I don't know anybody that I could pluck out of 2021 and and transplant into 1736 and have them thrive. I mean, it would
Right.
be they'd either freeze to death or they'd starve to death, or
Or
they'd
probably
commit
both.
suicide because, oh
Right.
my God, what is this? Let me out of here.
We're so
Uh,
soft to
yeah,
what they
we
were
are. We're
back
so
then.
fucked. Like, oh my God, I think it's a touch higher than 78 in the house. Lower the air conditioning.
Right.
Really? I mean, we have no idea how difficult life was.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult
Yep.
life
Um,
was.
Mary with Lunar Eclipse Paranormal says there's a residual there, but there is like a dimensions into more than one portal. More specifically, the basement. I think it's the house and the land.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, it's something, and it's an undeniable something. This is probably, I can't think of another haunted house or haunted property that has been as well documented and as extensively chronicled as our house. Going back, well, it's not mine anymore, but the house I grew up in, I mean, going back into the 1800s, there's mentions of that property in Keach's History of Burrillville, going back, I think, into the 1840s, about spirit activity around that area. And you didn't see a lot of writing about that in at
right.
that time period. It's an amazing book. Keach's History of Burrillville is an amazing book.
Wow, that's interesting. Sheriff Buford says, I am honored to be in the same live stream with Miss Perrin. All I can say is awesome. I
Thank you.
told you,
Please,
everybody was going to be so
yeah,
super excited about this.
yeah.
Um,
Don't feel so formal. Just I'm just Andrea. My friends call me Annie. There's no need to be formal. And oh my God, and don't ma'am me. Don't ma'am me. Because
no,
then I'll
no,
be officially old. Even though I have
right.
ma'amed myself, and I've named my office here the Ma'am Cave.
I love that. And I told when I told one person, I was like, she's so sweet. I was like, so, um, so there were so many strange things that happened in the farmhouse, from fires. I think there was three,
Yeah.
um, to bats, to flies. I mean, it. I know at one point your father was driving y'all crazy with his
Oh,
with his
oh,
um how can I put
fly
it?
swatter.
Yes. I mean, it was his duty to kill as many flies as he could, and I had laughed when I read y'all were eating, and he swats one, and y'all were just so disgusted and angry.
Landed right in Christine's bowl of cereal, drowning in the milk, laying there upside down with its little legs just twitching. It was
And
grotesque.
the bats, that story just boggled I was like, my God, you know, for them to all fly into the house and down the chimney. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, and the
Yeah,
fires. I mean, I know you were home alone with well,
with
yeah,
one. Yeah,
with the boiler, and one was which blew my mind was your father was setting the first fire of the season,
yeah.
and you
And it
explained it.
went
It
up.
was flames were shooting
Chimney fire. Yep,
yeah, and
yep.
then the other fire was, I think your parents went out and they had friends that were there with you girls, and um, he didn't know how to start a fire, and you said that fire burned so hot and so long that you were even terrified to go into the room. I
Yeah,
mean,
it cracked the granite,
yep.
and embers got down into the beams in the cellar of the
Oh,
house. No, it was so bad, and it could have been an absolute disaster. An absolute disaster. Yep.
and I'm reading these different occasions with the fires, and I'm going, that house is like a tinderbox. And I know that was your mom's biggest fear was
Here.
a
Yep.
fire, and
Yep.
her constantly, worrying about y'all sleeping upstairs and her. I mean, I was like, whew. There was something looking after y'all on all three occasions.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
I agree that that house that house survived that being in that kind of jeopardy
mm-hmm.
is amazing. It really is. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I consider it proof of the existence of God. I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, here you go. Here's a miracle. You want to know if miracles exist? Here's one right here. That house
Mm-hmm.
is still standing. You
Yep.
know,
Mary says, "Good thing the boiler didn't explode," and that's what the fireman
yeah,
said. It was close. It was darn close, and you were home by yourself
yeah.
when that
Which
happened.
hardly ever happened.
Right.
I don't even remember. I think dad, I don't remember where mom was. Maybe she went, but I think everybody left and went to the bakery. If I remember right, everybody came. Yes, that's
Yeah.
what, or they went into town for something and they stopped at the bakery on
Mm-hmm.
the way back. And the heat got so bad downstairs that it fused. Uh, phone lines stopped working. I mean,
Yep.
we had no phone, and I had to run
Mm-hmm.
to the neighbor's house, which I ran down toward town,
Mm-hmm.
and ran to the neighbor's house to call. I don't know why. I mean, there were houses closer up to the right, but I ended up going to the. I don't even know why. I was absolutely frantic. Um, and could not use a phone. There were no cell phones. They weren't invented yet.
Nope.
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. And they got there and they managed to save the house. They put the fire out. They saved the house.
What the interesting thing was when you
Oh,
first
Grandma,
noticed
wait a
it.
second. Would she move back if it was gifted to her? If it was free? Well, that's a good question. I would not move back. Would I take that gift? Absolutely. Would I make
Mm-hmm.
sure that the house was completely, utterly, totally protected at all times and that people that I completely trusted
Mm-hmm.
to be there were in it? Absolutely. Would I ever live there again? No. It's not, and it doesn't mean that I wouldn't visit. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't, have a special place in the house that was mine. It doesn't mean any of that. I just don't want to ever be that uncomfortable physically again.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
be that cold. I don't want to be, so hot that I can't breathe. It had
Mm-hmm.
no it had no air conditioning in the brutal summer, and it had inadequate heat in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
and there were only a couple of months a year where you could just sleep with your window open and it would be lovely. But Rhode
Mm-hmm.
Island average mean temperature is 51 degrees, and I live in paradise in Florida, and
Mm-hmm.
chances are really, really good that I am going to live in Florida for the rest of my life and visit Rhode Island regularly. I hope to anyway.
Yeah.
So, no, even if it was gifted to me, which would be absolutely lovely, but the universe, I can hear it laughing now.
Right.
Yeah, like somebody's gonna give you the house back in. Go ahead, get real. Um, no, I love it. I miss it. I'm afraid about it
Hmm.
because I don't know who's gonna buy it. I mean, there's a known quantity that's taking care of that place now, and
Hmm.
they're known not just to the paranormal community, they're known to me. It's
Yeah.
Corey and Jen Heinzen. And no, I'm terrified that
Yeah.
somebody's going to buy it with nefarious purposes.
Hmm.
And they say, be careful what you fear, for it will surely
Hmm.
come to pass. So I've
Yeah.
been trying to put that notion out of my mind, and just focus on the greater good. And I get it. I understand why they need to move on. I do. It's an
Yeah.
overwhelming task to take care of that property. It's an overwhelming task.
Well, I know I touched on the subject, with how people have treated Bathsheba's grave, but the same is said about the farmhouse because I had interviewed John Huntington, very sweet man. Oh, and you know, I asked him. I was like, "Is it true that these people are just showing up unannounced?" He's like, "Yep." He says it is bizarre. Um, that's the shocking thing to me is that Corey is even having to go out and argue with people that no, you just can't show up. This is a home. It's not an abandoned home. You can't just show up. And that
Hmm.
that was so shocking to me. Um, and Mary says they are some very good, kind people there, and I think Corey and Jen are um, they're good. They're good people. Um, but I sometimes wonder because I had a friend um, investigate the house, and what her and her partner, what he experienced was so frightening. And he said, I'd never experienced it. He says I let my armor down because I wanted to get the full effect of the house. Um, they do not provoke. They're wonderful people. But what he saw truly terrified him, and this is the first time she has ever had to leave in the middle of an investigation because he's like, no, we gotta go. If we stay, something bad is gonna happen. And I wonder, since Corey and Jen's opened the house, if some teams have come in there and done things they weren't supposed to be doing.
I don't know. I have no way of knowing that. I have no way of knowing how well monitored the teams
Yeah.
coming through it are. I'm, 1,600 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. What I do know is that I love the house, and I want it to be treated with reverence and respect and with love. And that's what I care about. And that's
Yeah.
really all that I care about. I want somebody to have it who will treat it responsibly and understand what they have, to be grateful for all that it will teach them.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, for them to experience that, and then for John to suddenly get a change in where the spirits were so friendly to him, calling out to him constantly. Brian even had told me that when him and Rochelle and Kendall and Vera were there, that the spirit box was constantly, "Where's John? John, where's John?" And I had asked him personally that question as well, and he's like, I don't know, because I saw a change in the responses he was getting, and that scared me and it angered me because there's no reason for anybody to go in that house. You can get experience in that house without provoking,
Yeah.
pushing, being nasty. There's no reason. There's no reason to do it. It's there. It'll give you what you want. So,
Well, it's just incredibly disrespectful behavior.
yes,
No, how dare you go into somebody else's house? You wouldn't talk to the homeowners that way. So why would you talk to the original homeowners that way? It was their house first. Why would you?
right.
I don't get it. I don't. If you already know that the house is active, it's just mean spirited to behave that way. It's I don't know. I'd come up with some words that you probably don't want to hear on air. I
I
know them
probably
all.
already have said them because that was the one thing that really I had to question a little bit because I watched one team go through there and they kept calling out for Bathsheba, Bathsheba, Bathsheba constantly through their investigation. I was like, why are you? What? I mean,
That drives me nuts. See, I wouldn't if the house was mine, I wouldn't allow that.
right.
I wouldn't. Um, I just wouldn't allow that. It's I mean, that's somebody that came in blind, didn't
Mm-hmm.
read the books, didn't know the backstory, did
Didn't.
no
Yeah.
research, watched a 2-hour movie, and then came to that house expecting for, images from that film stuck in their head to manifest and form in that house. That's just not the way it works.
No.
It's just not. And that's the downside of having a feature film made about your house that isn't based in any kind of reality or
Right.
truth of what transpired,
Mm-hmm.
and planting very powerful images into the minds of people who then want a self-fulfilling prophecy, just want
Mm-hmm.
everything that they imagine that it's going to be to actually come to pass. So it's kind of a retroactive. Um, it's not the way it works. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's just the best way to put it. It's just not. But I don't know. I don't know. I can't believe our time is up, but I really, really enjoyed
I
talking
know.
with you tonight. It's been I just looked at my phone and I'm like, no way. It's 9:55, really?
Mm-hmm.
But anybody that wants to reach out to me, I have a page on Facebook that it's easier to reach me at. It's called Buttercup Brigade. Like Buttercup, like my
Mm-hmm.
dog, Buttercup Brigade. It's a page of good deed doers
Mm-hmm.
and those of us that wear rose colored glasses because it's the only way to look at the world.
Yes.
Um, and I love you all and I appreciate you all for joining us tonight. That means so much to me that you were here with us. And I invite everybody to, either follow me on my main page at Facebook. My books are all available on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon.com or Amazon UK or CA, or depending on where you are in the world. Uh, and I hope that you will avail yourselves of them, because, Kim will tell you that it is a wild ride through the netherworld, but when you come up on the other side, you won't ever think about anything the same way again. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not a bad thing. It's not. I think it's time for us to change our minds about what kind of world we do live in, and to
Mm-hmm.
start to look at our old reality with new eyes, start
Mm-hmm.
to heighten our perceptions, and wake up to the fact that we live in a multidimensional
Yeah.
universe, and that there's a better way than the way we have chosen to live, and that there is something beyond our death. And I think that that alone is reason enough to be fascinated by
Mm-hmm.
all things paranormal. And so I just wanted to, thank you so much for having me. And please give my best to your husband and to your son.
I
Such
will.
lovely people that you are. Um, I have to be up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning to do an interview in Europe.
Gosh.
So I
Yes, I know
know.
that one.
Yeah. So I'm going to call it an evening for tonight. But thank you for the opportunity to join you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and talk to you, because it has been such a pleasure. And I loved picking your mind and
Mhm.
having this discussion. And I know everybody in chat has just been so over the moon over this. So thank
Oh,
you
it's my
so
pleasure. It
much.
truly is. It truly is my pleasure. And we'll do it again.
Oh,
It's
yes.
it's
Oh,
almost
yes.
2022. I'm sure there will be more shenanigans to discuss. I can come back on
Oh,
and tell
yes.
you all about how the live stream was and how that went,
That's
all the behind the scenes stuff that happened. Oh my God.
that is what I was like. I've got to have her back on after Halloween, probably in the new
Yep.
year, to
Yep.
talk about that, because I know everybody would love to hear about that as well. Um, Especially with you going back home and seeing what wonderful things happen. Um, Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate your
welcome.
time, because I know you've been a busy, busy woman.
Whew.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And Halloween is almost over, so maybe
Yeah.
you'll get a little bit of a rest
No,
period.
no, I'm busy right through Thanksgiving, and then it comes to an end, an abrupt end.
Oh,
From Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve of 2022, I have nothing on my calendar, and I am going to try to keep it that way
yes.
and let that be my time for my family and
Yes.
my friends, and celebrating the fact that we made it through another year of
Mm-hmm.
global pandemic, social unrest. Oh my God, it's been a wild ride. It has.
It has. It certainly has.
It's not
Well,
over
thank.
yet.
No,
No,
it's not.
it's not.
No.
Oh,
God only knows, but
God
we'll
only
cross our
knows.
fingers and think
Yes.
positive.
Yep. Yep. God bless you, my darling.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, guys. Thank you so much. You guys are what makes this channel. You guys are the important ones. So thank you so much, each and every one of you. I mean, this was one goal of mine I wanted to reach so badly, and I got to share it with all of y'all. And thank you so much, because y'all are what makes this channel. Y'all are what makes me push on and get some great people. And I still have one more interview for this month. I think it's the 24th. Don't quote me. I'll let y'all know next week. It's going to be awesome. I think y'all will enjoy that one. I have another great team I'm doing in November. Actually, I have two. And then December, I have another very interesting woman. I'm looking forward to also picking her mind as well. So, with the chaoticness of everything, you guys push me to get these wonderful people on here and tell their stories. So I am grateful to you guys. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for another wonderful night. Good night.